Thanks for that devotional. I think you're a little hard on yourself there. It's still a good reminder for all of us, but I've been the recipient of your free labor on multiple evenings, and I know you said sometimes it feels like you go to work and you go to sleep and you go to work, but if you look around us, our little church has quite a bit of financial needs that you could give to. We have Tuesday church. Aaron used to be involved. He probably still is in a mission down in Honduras. Adrian, he's over in Ukraine. Chad and Fonda. These are all things that require money, and that's the I believe that's the hands and feet of the church. That's the practical outcome. All these good things, yeah, they help the church. They move it along, but they take money, and that's got to come from somewhere. And so, you sleep and you go to work. Yeah. Mowing the yard for free. Yeah, you're a generous man, Dwayne. So you're too hard on yourself. That is a good reminder, though, for the rest of us. So this morning, I'm sorry you guys get to listen to me. Now would be a good time to go stir your crock pots. And, you can take 20, 25 minutes to do that. That's not a problem. But, today I'm here going to talk a little bit about what is a man. But before, I would like to share a little story about three blind men. And so there was three blind men, and they heard about this new and exotic animal that came to town. And they decided to go check it out as best as blind man can. And so they went over to this animal. It was a fairly large animal. Like I said, it was an exotic animal. It wasn't natural to the place they were at. And the first man goes and feels it, and he feels the ear. And it was a large floppy ear, had a little bit of hair on it. He was like, man, must be a fan. And the second guy, he's there feeling around, and he feels the leg. And it's a pretty large leg, pretty straight, pretty large. Can't put his arms around it like this. It's a very large leg, and he goes, oh, it must be a tree. It doesn't make a lot of sense because, we came to see an animal, but it must be a tree. The third blind guy is feeling around, and he feels a rope. Well, it was a tail, but he feels a rope, and he's pulling on it a little bit, and he's like, well, this must be a rope. And these three men get to talking, and they get very heated because each man thought they were right. And they kind of were in their own eyes because they were blind. They were coming from their own perspective. And here they were all inspecting an elephant. And so today, what I'm sharing is from my perspective, and I ask for your forbearance in that. If you hear something that you don't agree with, please talk to me about it. But it is my perspective, and it's one-sided. So this morning, what is a man? He's a successful man. But what actually makes a man? What is a man that you want to allow your children to be around, make a role model as? Who is somebody that you yourself would look to as an example of, I want to be like that? Interestingly enough, Billy Graham never had a scandal in his ministry. He made it a priority to always have two people in the room when he was with a lady, whether it was counseling or whether it was one of his staff ladies. You wouldn't expect a scandal to come from one of your staff ladies, but he always had him and one other person, whether it was his wife or another man in there. He always had two people, and because of that, he was able to avoid scandals. And I think we can learn something from that. He looked ahead, he saw the possibility, and he knew he himself wasn't above temptation. Great mark of a man. So, again, what is a man? Why would I talk about this? This is kind of a broad subject. I'm 26. What do I know about it? Well, this is my first message sharing time, and so I've often thought about it. What makes a man, and it's something that's been in the back of my mind for a little bit longer than Junior asked me to share. So I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing about this subject, so here we are. What are some manly qualities? Well, you have kind and gentle, compassion and caring, a leader. What are some other qualities that you guys can name off? But these are all good examples of what a man, various characteristics of what I think a man should have in his life. So why don't we look to the scriptures for the ultimate man? I would like to look at Jesus and some instances in his life that I believe are good examples for us and how a man should conduct his life. I'd like to start with Jesus' baptism. As he was being baptized, there was an angel came down from heaven, and there was a voice that said, "This is my son in whom I am well pleased." And God was proud of him. God was proud of his son who came down to earth. And up until this point, he was around 30, 31 years old, and God was God, so he hadn't sinned. He hadn't done anything that would blot his character. And so, of course, Jesus was proud of him. And what a compliment, to have Jesus say that he's proud of you. So the next example I would like to look at is the Sermon on the Mount. I think it's a good example for us men, for us leaders. It's a good example for public speaking. Jesus said a lot of things, and it could have been a lengthy message. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was short, maybe it was long. But what's recorded in the scriptures, there's a lot of subjects in there, but everything is brief. He says it and he moves on. He doesn't circle around and try to fill up the clock, and he says it one more time. Jesus does repeat things various times, but it's not in the same evening at the same time that he's speaking. So I think that's a good example for us public speakers, is just say what you're going to say and then move on. Another example, Jesus has compassion. There's a lot of stories that Jesus had compassion on a person or a multitude, and he healed them. And he also took care of his friends. And an example of that is in Matthew 8:14 and 15. Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. So he took care of the people around him, but also his friends. And you can see traits of loyalty there. You can obviously caring, compassion. And these are all things that I believe we should embody to the people around us. Also, Jesus calmed the storm in Matthew 8:23 and 27. And, he could have responded in a variety of ways for this one. He could have been like, you're riding with me. You don't have to worry about anything. It's going to be fine. I was sleeping. Why can't you guys sleep? But instead, he got up and he calmed the storm, and they were amazed. And I think the little protection that is we us men sometimes feel, and that came out in Jesus. He decided, I'm going to bring some calmness to the situation here, and he calmed the storm. So another instance is Jesus was honest. He didn't sugarcoat things. And I would like to read a little passage in Matthew 8:18 to 22. I should say I will not be reading out of the NIV or the King James Version. I'll be reading out of the Contemporary English Version. So it's a easy translation for me to understand. When Jesus saw the crowd, he went across Lake Galilee. A teacher of the law of Moses came up to him and said, "Teacher, I'll go anywhere with you." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man doesn't have a place to call his own." Another disciple said to Jesus, "Lord, let me wait till I bury my father." Jesus answered, "Come with me and let the dead bury their dead." So obviously, you have the takeaway there that Jesus and his followers don't really have a place to call their own, and it's a little bit of a rougher ride than the world would prefer. And so Jesus was just making him aware, you should count the cost before you decide to just drop everything and follow me. And we again would do well to do that today. When I read this passage, I often think that the last verse there, verse 22, "Come with me and let the dead bury their dead." We were visiting Dave Warner about a month before he died, and his daughter was there, and they had just buried their one. No, it would have been a relative or a friend of Loretta, their daughter, and she was talking about how she really wanted to be at the funeral because she felt that's what the person that had deceased, he wanted to do, or she wanted to do that out of respect for him. Like, he would have appreciated that. And Dave grins and he's like, well, he didn't know you were there. Like, you could have been anywhere else, but he didn't know you were there. And that's kind of true. We shouldn't wait till the person is laying in a casket to say the good things about them, the things that we appreciate about them, or even to show up and show our support. They won't get that. That's a little bit past at that point. We should be people of action. We should be people that live intentionally and live in the moment. So something else that Jesus was willing to be is he was willing to be seen with bad people, publicans and sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes. He was seen with a variety of people. And this would indicate that he didn't have a better than thou attitude. He was very humble. And as it says later, he was focused on his mission. He was focused on saving the lost. And he didn't come to save somebody that didn't need help. I mean, obviously we're all sinful. We all need Jesus' help. But he didn't come to force it down your throat. And, I think that's a real, true love is when you're able to offer it and not force it on somebody. But along with that is imagine all the stories, the rumors, the looks, the knowing looks of, oh, you probably did something you weren't supposed to, that floated around Jesus because he was seen, he enjoyed meals, he fellowshiped with these people, probably not on a heart-to-heart level. They probably weren't his inner circle of friends, but he was seen with them. And as such, people being people, I'm sure they talked. So it took a lot of courage, took a lot of humility. Also, Jesus was a patient man. In Matthew 9:14-17, Jesus often fielded questions with barbs on them. So think of the time when Jesus was talking to, I believe, the Pharisees or the folks at the temple, I'll say, and they were like, we know who our dad is, but do you know who your dad is? And Jesus, according to the scriptures, he didn't really get riled. He didn't get angry. He didn't call them names. He just gave them a fair answer. I believe the Matthew 9:14-17, that is an instance of, how was it? They were asking about fasting. We fast a lot. We're very holy, but why don't your people fast a lot? And there again, Jesus gave them a very nice, kind answer. He was patient. He didn't get annoyed at them. I mean, I'm sure he did, but he didn't let it affect him to the point that it affected his relationship with them or his ability to communicate with them. Another example or something we can pull out of that is Jesus is approachable. And he wasn't better than thou. He was approachable. And I think that's something us men should always strive to be, no matter, how successful we are or how we don't like being around large crowds or people. We should try to be approachable. So the next section of examples I would like to pull from is how Jesus treated ladies. And I think they're especially significant because this was before the women liberation movement. This was before women, had a lot of rights. Women were not really looked at as equals. They weren't looked at as, they were almost looked at as subhuman. And that while that's sad, I think it's incredible that the Christian church, the young Christian church, strove to change that, especially in the church. And so the first example that I'd like to say is women felt safe around Jesus and even compelled to help Jesus and the disciples out financially. And you can see that example in Luke 8:1-3. There was let me turn to that real quick, because there was a helper of a ruler. His wife actually followed Jesus around and contributed to them. Joanna, Susanna, and many others who also had. Joanna's husband, Chusa, was one of Herod's officials. So Jesus was able to make women from all walks of life feel safe and feel like they would be okay to follow him around. That he made them feel, I believe he made them feel heard and respected. So Luke 7:36-50, here again, Jesus defended a lady. And it's an instance of Jesus goes, he's invited to, Luke 36, Simon the Pharisee. He's invited to his house, and he goes in, has a meal with him. And for some reason, Simon didn't really offer to wash his feet or anoint his head with some oil. And I guess they just got right down to the meal. And here comes this lady, and when a sinful woman in that town found out that Jesus was there. So we don't know a whole lot more about her. It's just that she was a sinful woman. And this lady comes in, recognizes Jesus for what he is. Obviously, probably felt, safe, or maybe she felt just her great need. Maybe she was actually recognized him for who he was. And whatever the scenario is, she came in and washed his feet with oil or with perfume. And I believe, let me see. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure if she washed his head, but the woman kissed his feet and poured the perfume on them. And Simon was like, this woman's sinful. What are you doing? She can't do that. And Jesus was like, well, look, hold on. You're the host here. You didn't even wash my feet. You didn't even give my head any oil. The significance of washing feet in oil is, they wore sandals and they got dirty. And so when they came to somebody's house, they would wash their feet for them. It was just a way of being hospitable. And he was like, you're a horrible host. And this lady comes in and takes care of those needs and is a wonderful host for you. It could have been a prime opportunity for Jesus and this Simon the Pharisee to exchange a couple laughs at the woman's expense. Yeah, she really did some bad things. Or Jesus could have said, you need to leave me alone. I'm enjoying a meal. Do you know who I am? Leave me alone, back off. But he was very gracious. He defended this lady to the Pharisee. And I think there again, we could learn something from that for us men to apply to our lives. In Luke 8:40-56, a lady touches Jesus. And I'm sure we all know this story. A lady touches Jesus' hem and is healed of her sicknesses, of her infirmities. And here again, Jesus didn't scold her. He didn't embarrass her. But instead, he genuinely wanted to know who it was that touched him. That way he could just, I believe, have an interaction with her. I think Jesus was a social person, and he enjoyed having those interactions. And so he just wanted to see who it was to bless her, maybe for her courageousness. But this lady, here again, Jesus didn't treat this lady unfairly or make her feel less than. He took good care of her. So in John, moving on to John 4, 3-42, there's a story of the Samaritan woman. And, this lady had married multiple times. What is the count? 6 or 7 times. And she was non-Jewish. And here Jesus is, a Jewish man, talking to this Samaritan woman. And here again, I believe the significance of it is that it's a non-Jewish lady that didn't have a lot of rights, because she's a lady, non-Jewish, and I believe the Jews looked at the Samaritans as not really equal to them. They were less than people, and so the fact that he was seen talking to her for a good amount of time is significant. And here again, he didn't embarrass her, but he did call her out a little bit on her lifestyle. And she was able, I think because he didn't embarrass her or point barbs at her, she was able to hear that and be like, that's very true. And it was a great interaction there between Jesus and this Samaritan woman. So moving on to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. I'm going to move to John 11. And it's interesting that the Bible dedicates so much scripture to their interaction, to the hosting, the fact that Mary, Martha, and Lazarus hosted Jesus a lot. And I don't know, I found it interesting. One being, Jesus was such a successful person. He was well sought out. He had large crowds following him around. But yet, I feel like when he came to Martha and Lazarus, he was able to take his shoes off and, enjoy a relaxing evening of food and good times. And, maybe they had a great little villa that had a overlook. They could look out over the city as the sun went down, or maybe it was just a house and lined with other houses right in the street, and there was no view. But whatever it was a great atmosphere of relaxing, of enjoying each other's company, of food and conversation. And Jesus was able to feel re-energized, and he was able to kind of breathe a couple breaths and breathe a sigh of relief, be left alone a little bit. And I think there's an example for us as well, as that we need to be hosts. And it's not really about the place or what we have or the things that are at our place. It's rather that we provide a good atmosphere by having a great marriage, not really fighting between you and your spouse while you have company there, but instead providing that relaxed, comfortable atmosphere that people feel comfortable to come in and relax, and you're able to reach out to them, to minister to them. So something else I found interesting about this is Jesus cried when Lazarus died. And I don't know why he cried, because I'm assuming Jesus being Jesus, he knew he was going to raise him from the dead. But he took a moment to commiserate with Martha and Mary in their grief, and he cried with them. And they were such good friends, obviously, that they must have been good friends, that the sisters sent for Jesus. And they were like, hey, you need to come. And then when finally Jesus did get there, must have been, again, a level of comfortableness there. Like, they were good friends. They were like, they berated Jesus a little bit. They were like, you took a long time to get here. I mean, he's been dead and buried already. Like, he probably stinks. And Jesus was like, no, bring him out. And he healed him. And again, I would just like to point out that this friendship would not have been possible if Jesus would have been sleazy or talked down to these ladies that were Lazarus' sisters. If he would have made the girls feel uncomfortable, tried to take advantage of them when Lazarus wasn't around, this friendship would not have happened if Jesus would have conducted himself in that manner. And it probably would have been an okay manner at that time, being women didn't have a lot of rights. But anyways, Jesus was a fabulous host. And I would like to point out how he fed the 5,000 to 4,000 people. He felt sorry for them. Both of these scenarios, he provided a great meal. There was plenty for everyone to eat. I'm sure they had seconds. And he was a good host. He took care of the people around him. So Jesus was a very thankful person. And that's something that, right in these times, we're like, man, is there a lot to be thankful for? But there is. And I don't know if Jesus was always in the back of his mind, the crucifixion hung over him. I don't know. But, with everything that Jesus faced, he was thankful. In Luke 10:21-24, there's an example of how, remember, he sent the 72 people out in groups of 2. They were supposed to minister to people, maybe start churches. They healed a lot of people. They did many great works. And then they came back, and we're all excited. And we're telling Jesus all these great, fabulous stories. And Jesus had just bubbled over into a prayer of thanksgiving. And I think there again, no matter what we're facing, we need to be thankful to Jesus. And so Jesus was neither a bully nor a pushover. I don't want to say he was a violent person. He obviously wasn't, but neither did he. He got pushed around a lot, but every once in a while he was like, this is the line, and I'm going to push back now. The one example is of Luke 4:16-30. The crowd, he was teaching and talking, and the crowd really didn't like what he had to say, and so they were like, we're going to kill you. And so they take him to a cliff, and they were getting ready to throw him over, and somehow, it reminded me of like that Old Testament story where Jesus blinded the people, and he was able to slip away. So somehow, like I say, he was able to slip away. He moved away from the crowd. He didn't put up a fight. He just moved away, moved on to another town, and kept going. But then in Luke 19:45-48, I'll just turn there real quick. Luke 19. 45 to 38. Jesus entered the table, and he started chasing out the people who were selling things. He told them, "The scriptures say my house should be a place of worship, but you have made it a place where robbers hide." Each day, Jesus kept on teaching in the temple, so the chief priests, the teachers of the law of Moses, and some of the other important people tried to have him killed. But they could not find a way to do it because everyone else was eager to listen. So, in several... I don't know, was it Mark or Matthew or maybe even John, that Jesus came in, he flipped the tables, he formed a whip out of some leather cords there, and he clears the temple. He chases all the people out, he chases all the animals out. And in Matthew 12 and also in 23, he calls the Pharisees and maybe the scribes, I'm not sure who was in the crowd, but he calls them a den of vipers, and he calls them serpents as well. So there's something for us to learn there. He's not afraid to call sin out. He didn't walk into the temple and said, I forgive you, we're just going to forget about this and move on. He actually, it riled him, it caused him a lot of anger, and he did something about it. So somewhere along the line, there is a time and a place for calling sin out and doing something about it. Jesus took time to have some quiet time. Jesus was like I said, crowds followed him around. People wanted him to heal them, their children, or their infirmities all the time. He was maybe a modern-day rock star. I don't know, but he had a lot of people follow him around. However, Jesus found the time to step away and get some quiet time. And I think here again, we would do well to do that. Take our families on a little trip, or you yourself have a day off, or you just get your thoughts about you and spend some time with Jesus. Several instances that I wrote down. Luke 9:28, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray. Luke 9:18, Jesus was alone praying. John 8:1, Jesus went to the Mount of Olives for an evening. Matthew 26 to 36, and Matthew 26 verse 36, he retreated to the Garden of Gethsemane. So even Jesus, he was a perfect man. There was no fault in him. Jesus sought out some solitude, sought out some rest, and I think here again, there's nothing wrong with that. We should try to do that for ourselves. Jesus' resolve, focus, and dedication was very, very incredible. So I'd like to point you all to the Last Supper. Let's see, where was it? John. So in John 12, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus went back to Bethany where he had raised Lazarus from the death. A meal had been prepared for Jesus. Martha was doing the serving, and Lazarus himself was there. That's John 12, verses 1 to 2. I found it interesting that before this last hurdle, Jesus wanted to have another meal with his friends, and Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And I'm sure they, I don't know if Martha and them guys, if they understood, what the time was, but Jesus did, I'm sure, and he was an intentional person, and I'm sure that was a very dear evening to him. They move on to the Passover, and they have the Last Supper with the disciples, and here again, Jesus was intentional, and here he did tell the disciples that this is the last you'll see me, and they didn't believe him, of course, but he did a couple acts of service for them, enjoyed a meal with his good friends. They've been traveling around for 3 years. I'm sure they're very close. And then he retreated to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he started to pray. And the anguish of thinking about all this sin being dropped on him, of dying on the cross, all these things, being rejected, being made fun of, all these things were piling up on him. And the Bible says in Luke 22:44 that Jesus sweated drops of blood, or as if it were drops of blood. And that is some severe stress, some severe anguish. But yet Jesus, I should say, he prayed that this would pass from me, but he was like, I'm okay if it doesn't. And yet Jesus was dedicated to the mission. He was focused. And that's something us men could learn from as well, as far as not not getting distracted. It's like, oh, there goes a squirrel, I could do this or I could do that, and you have 5 projects that never have a conclusion to them. There's nothing wrong with the project that you chose. It's just pick something and do it and finish it. So along with the Last Supper here and Jesus' ministry in general, is I believe Jesus was the greatest servant leader of all time. And there again, we can learn something from that. It's not like us, if you are a leader of an organization, a business, or a church, that you have people serve you. It should be the other way around. You look out for people's well-being. I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk one day. It was just a short little clip. And he said he thinks that the reason people have trouble retaining their employees is that they think that they're the boss, the employees are there to serve them. Well, he's like, you guys got it all wrong. This is why you can't retain your employees. He's like, you as the boss are there to serve them. And it's your responsibility to make sure that they have everything they need. That's a business example. But again, it's mirrors Jesus' ministry of being a servant leader and reaching out to the folks around him, making sure that they were well taken care of and didn't lack for anything. So Jesus on the cross, I found it very interesting. He was dying, he was in his final moments, and he was in a lot of pain, a lot of anguish, and he had all this sin being dropped on him. But yet he had the presence of mind to look down, and he saw his mom standing there with a couple other ladies. And I believe maybe Peter was standing there as well. And he looks down, and he's like, Peter, look at your mom, and Mom, look at your son. And I don't know where Joseph was. I don't know, did he pass away? Was he no longer, I'm sure they didn't divorce or anything like that. But for some reason, Jesus felt a need to make sure that his mom was taken care of before he died. And I think we would all do well, as far as us men, to take care of the ladies around us, whether it be our wives or our moms or our sisters or friends who are ladies. We need to look out for them. Give them a ride somewhere. Don't let them pay for a lot of stuff, especially if they're going on a mission trip. These are all just practical, shoe leather ways that we can provide for the ladies around us. So in closing, Jesus was a man of velvet. So he had these soft qualities he was long-suffering, gentle, compassionate. He was slow to anger. He was humble. He was kind, caring. He was forgiving. He defended the weak, and he was a good listener. And that list of velvet qualities could go on for a while. But Jesus was also a man of steel. Jesus was confident. Jesus was a leader of men. He called sin out. He was secure. I believe when he looked in the mirror and he had a good image, he was secure in himself. He wasn't proud, but he was secure in himself. He had integrity. He was loyal. He had anger for sin. He was trustworthy, and he had self-control. These are, like I say, he had velvet qualities, he had steel qualities, and I believe a man has to have both of these qualities to live a balanced life of leading our families. I sometimes wish that Jesus had married. We would be able to explore that whole aspect of work and family balance, how he raised his children, how often he spanked them, how he took care of her, how often he took her out to eat, how often he bought her flowers. But we don't really have a physical example of that. But in a way, if we're willing to look at the bigger picture, the picture is still there for us. It's between God and the church is referred to as his bride. God sent his only son to redeem his bride. He had so much love, adoration, and unswerving loyalty to us, his bride, only to be rejected, spurned, humiliated, mocked, lied to, and left for another. If I sometimes try to put myself in that situation as far as, would I be willing to go die for a group of people that, let's say there was 100 people that I could save, and all but one of them was going to laugh at me and call me stupid, call me an idiot. And let's remember also that I'm giving up a life of luxury, I'm giving a life of untold riches. I'm giving up a life of being respected, I have everything at my control. I'm giving that up to come down and live on the streets of Canton to serve maybe a group of 100 people and save them from the electric chair, let's say. Well, they're going to all laugh at me except for one of them. I don't think I'd do it. I don't, but Jesus did. Jesus did, and not only did he come, God sent his only son. So let's, for you fathers, you put yourself in that situation, sending your only son down there to have that happen to him, to watch that happen. There again, I don't think I'd do it. But it's an incredible example of Jesus loving his bride, pursuing her, Jesus/God pursuing his bride. And, sometimes we say, at a certain point, enough is enough. But Jesus didn't say that. And I'm not condemning people that say enough is enough, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Jesus is so long-suffering, so loving, so gentle, and I think that is an example of what marriage should look like for us. So, that is all I had. I'm going to turn the time back to Junior.